At number 7, we have the bizarre case of a woman who disappeared from her neighborhood, only to be found living in someone else's closet. In 2008, a 58-year-old Japanese man named Tatsuko started noticing that food was mysteriously disappearing from his kitchen. At first, he thought he was just being forgetful, but when rice, vegetables, and even snacks kept vanishing, he knew something was seriously wrong. Terrified that someone was breaking into his home, he installed security cameras throughout his house. What those cameras captured was absolutely shocking. The footage revealed a woman living in his closet, not just hiding there temporarily, but actually living there. She had created a small living space with bedding, food supplies, and personal items. The woman was 58-year-old Kazuko Yamamoto, who had been reported missing by her family over a year earlier. But here's the truly disturbing part. Police estimated she had been living in his closet for an entire year without him knowing. She would sneak out at night while he was sleeping, help herself to food, use his bathroom, and then disappear back into the closet before he woke up. When police finally arrested her, she calmly explained that she was homeless and had simply found an unlocked door one day. She said the closet was comfortable and she didn't think it would be a problem. The homeowner had walked past that closet hundreds of times, never knowing someone was living just feet away from him. But this case seems almost normal compared to what's coming next. Fact number 6, the man beneath the house. At number 6, we have a case that's straight out of a horror movie. In 2006, a woman in Rock Hill, South Carolina kept hearing strange, scratching sounds coming from beneath her house. She reported it to police multiple times, but officers found nothing during their searches. They assumed it was just animals living in the crawl space. But the sounds continued for months. Scratching, movement, sometimes even what sounded like breathing. Finally, after nearly a year of these terrifying sounds, police conducted a more thorough search of the crawl space beneath her home. What they found was shocking. A man was living under her house. But this wasn't a random homeless person. This was her ex-boyfriend, Andrew Beliveau, who had disappeared 12 years earlier in 1994. After their breakup, everyone assumed he had left town. His family filed a missing persons report, but the case went cold. Little did anyone know, he had been living in the crawl space beneath his ex-girlfriend's house for over a decade. He had created a living area down there with stolen blankets, food containers, and even books. He had tapped into her electrical system to power a small lamp, and most disturbingly, he had drilled small holes in the floor above, so he could watch her. When police pulled him out, he was malnourished, filthy, and disoriented. He told police he just wanted to be close to her and claimed he still loved her. The woman was absolutely traumatized, realizing that for 12 years she had been sleeping, eating, and living her life while her obsessed ex-boyfriend watched from below. Andrew was arrested and charged with stalking and breaking and entering. The woman sold the house immediately and moved to a different state, but as disturbing as that is, it's nothing compared to number 5. The girl who became a ghost. At number 5, we have one of the strangest cases in modern history. In 1991, 11-year-old J.C. Dugard was kidnapped while walking to her school bus stop in California. Despite a massive search effort involving the FBI, police, and thousands of volunteers, she vanished without a trace. Her case became one of the most publicized missing children cases in America. Her family never gave up hope, but as years passed, most people assumed the worst. Billboards with her face faded. The tips stopped coming. The case went cold. 18 years later, in 2009, police received a strange report about a man acting suspiciously on a college campus with 2 young girls. When officers investigated, they discovered something that shocked the entire nation. J.C. Dugard was alive, but she wasn't found in some distant location or foreign country. She had been living in a hidden backyard compound, just 170 miles from where she was kidnapped. For 18 years, she had been held captive in tents and sheds behind the house of her kidnapper, Philip Garrido. But it gets even more disturbing. During her captivity, Garrido had fathered 2 children with her. JC had been forced to raise these children in complete isolation, never leaving the backyard prison. The children, ages 11 and 15 when JC was finally found, had never been to school, never seen a doctor, and had no birth certificates. They didn't even know the outside world existed. Neighbors had lived next door for years and never suspected anything. Garrido was even visited by his parole officer multiple times, and nobody discovered JC and her daughters living in the backyard. When JC was finally rescued, she was 29 years old. She had spent more than half her life in captivity, just a short drive from where her mother still lived, hoping she would come home. Philip Garrido and his wife Nancy were both sentenced to life in prison. JC has since written a book about her experience and has been reunited with her family. But this case raises a terrifying question. How many other missing people are hidden in plain sight? The answer might shock you, because number 4 takes this to another level: the neighbor who never left. At number 4, we have a case so unbelievable, it sounds like fiction. In 1984, a woman named Dolores Lumbra disappeared from her apartment building in Chicago. Her family reported her missing, and police conducted searches of the building and surrounding area. They found nothing. Dolores had seemingly vanished into thin air. For 24 years, her family searched for answers. They hired private investigators. They distributed flyers. They never gave up hope that she was alive somewhere. Then in 2008, maintenance workers were cleaning out a storage area in the same apartment building where Dolores had lived. Behind a false wall in a storage closet, they made a horrifying discovery. Dolores Lumbra was there. Not her remains, but Dolores herself, alive, sitting in a small space filled with years of trash, empty food containers, and makeshift bedding. She had been living inside the walls of her own apartment building for 24 years. When workers found her, she was 68 years old, severely malnourished, and suffering from multiple health issues. She could barely speak and seemed completely disconnected from reality. Here's what makes this case absolutely insane. Her apartment had been just 300 feet away from where she was found. Her family had continued living in the building during those 24 years, walking past that storage area countless times, never knowing she was right there. Police investigations revealed that Dolores had likely suffered a mental breakdown in 1984. Instead of leaving the building, she had apparently found the hidden space and decided to live there. She survived by sneaking out late at night to steal food from dumpsters and other apartments. But here's the question nobody could answer. Why didn't she just leave? Why didn't she go home to her family who lived in the same building? Doctors later diagnosed her with severe schizophrenia and dissociative disorders. She had created an entire delusional world in her mind where hiding in the walls was safer than living in the real world. Dolores spent the rest of her life in a psychiatric facility. Her family was devastated, realizing that for more than 2 decades, she had been suffering just feet away from them. This case haunts investigators to this day. How many other people are living in the hidden spaces of buildings, lost to mental illness and fear? But if you think that's the most shocking place someone was found, wait until you hear number 3, the man in the forest. At number 3, we have a case that baffled everyone who heard it. In 1986, a man named Christopher Knight walked into the woods of Maine and didn't come back out for 27 years. Christopher wasn't kidnapped. He wasn't lost. He made a conscious decision to disappear from society completely. But what makes this case so shocking is where he lived and how he survived for nearly 3 decades. In 2013, police finally caught Christopher after he triggered a motion sensor alarm while breaking into a summer camp. When they arrested him, they couldn't believe what they discovered. Christopher had been living in a tent deep in the Maine woods, less than 3 miles from a busy highway and residential areas. For 27 years, he survived brutal winters, blazing summers, and complete isolation without anyone knowing he was there. But here's the insane part. He survived by burglarizing nearby camps and cabins over 1,000 times. He stole food, propane tanks, batteries, clothing, and books. The local community had been experiencing these mysterious break-ins for decades, but police could never catch the thief. When they finally found his camp, investigators were stunned. Christopher had created an incredibly sophisticated survival system. He had dozens of stolen supplies organized perfectly, a complex system for collecting water, and insulated shelters for winter. But what shocked people the most was this. In 27 years, Christopher claimed he only had one human interaction, a brief hi to a hiker he accidentally encountered. Other than that single word, he didn't speak to another human being for almost 3 decades. Why did he do it? When police asked him, his answer was simple. I just didn't want to be around people anymore. No mental illness diagnosis, no traumatic event. He simply preferred complete isolation. Christopher Knight became known as the North Pond Hermit. He was sentenced to 7 months in jail for the burglaries, and after his release, he struggled to reintegrate into society. The man who spent 27 years in silence suddenly had to navigate a world of smartphones, internet, and constant noise. His case raises fascinating questions about human nature. How long can a person survive in complete isolation? And what drives someone to choose that life? But as extreme as Christopher's choice was, number 2 involves someone who didn't choose to disappear at all. The woman who was already dead. At number 2, we have a case so twisted, it sounds impossible. In 2011, a woman named Brenda Heist disappeared from her home in Pennsylvania. She was a mother of 2 and married at the time. One day, she simply vanished. Her car was found abandoned, her belongings left behind, and there were no signs of what happened to her. Her husband reported her missing immediately. Police investigated but found no evidence of foul play and no clues about where she had gone. As years passed, her family held memorial services. Her husband eventually had her legally declared dead. Her children grew up without a mother, believing she had either been murdered or had died somewhere alone. They grieved, moved on with their lives, and tried to find closure. Then, 11 years later, in 2013, Brenda Heist walked into a police station in Florida and turned herself in. She was alive. She hadn't been kidnapped or held captive. She had left voluntarily. But here's where the story gets shocking. On the day she disappeared, Brenda had been sitting in a park, feeling overwhelmed by financial stress and her struggling marriage. A group of homeless people approached her, and on an impulsive decision, she asked if she could join them. They said yes, and she left. Just like that. For 11 years, she lived as a homeless person in Florida, moving from camp to camp, working occasional odd jobs under fake names, and completely cutting off contact with her family. Her own children, who were 8 and 12 when she disappeared, grew up thinking their mother was dead. When she finally decided to turn herself in, her explanation was shocking. I just got scared. And then as time went on, I didn't know how to come back. Her family was devastated. Her ex-husband said it would have been easier if she had actually died, because at least then there would have been a reason. But knowing she had chosen to abandon them was something they struggled to forgive. Brenda faced charges for identity theft, for using fake names, and was eventually released. She attempted to reconnect with her children, but the damage was done. Her daughter publicly stated she wanted nothing to do with her. This case raises disturbing questions. How could a mother just walk away from her children? And how do you rebuild a relationship with someone who let you believe they were dead for 11 years? But as shocking as Brenda's choice was, nothing compares to the final case on our list. Number 1 is absolutely mind-blowing. The boy who became someone else. And at number 1, we have the most shocking disappearance and discovery in modern history. In 1994, 13-year-old Nicholas Barclay disappeared while walking home from a basketball game in Texas. His family was devastated. Despite extensive searches and media coverage, Nicholas was never found. Years passed, and his family slowly lost hope. Then, 3 years later in 1997, they received a phone call that would change everything. A boy had been found in Spain, claiming to be Nicholas Barclay. The family was overjoyed. The boy said he had been kidnapped by a child trafficking ring, tortured, and moved across multiple countries before escaping in Spain. Despite the horrific story, the family was just relieved to have Nicholas home. There was just one problem. This wasn't Nicholas Barclay. The boy who came home had brown eyes. Nicholas had blue eyes. The boy had a French accent. Nicholas was from Texas. The boy was clearly in his early 20s. Nicholas would have been only 16. But somehow, the family accepted him anyway. They brought him home, enrolled him in school, and tried to rebuild their lives with Nicholas back. But a private investigator named Charlie Parker became suspicious. He started digging into the case and discovered something absolutely insane. The boy wasn't Nicholas at all. He was a 23-year-old French con artist named Frédéric Bourdin, who had a history of impersonating missing children. Frédéric had seen a TV report about missing children, found Nicholas's case in a missing persons database, and called the family claiming to be him. Despite looking nothing like Nicholas, speaking with a completely different accent, and being 7 years older than Nicholas should have been, the family desperately wanted to believe it was him. When the truth finally came out, Frédéric was arrested and deported back to France. But here's the truly disturbing twist that nobody talks about. Investigators started asking a darker question. Why did the family accept an obvious imposter so easily? What were they hiding? Some investigators believe the family knew immediately that this wasn't Nicholas, but accepted him anyway because the real Nicholas was already dead, and they had something to do with it. To this day, the real Nicholas Barclay has never been found, and his case remains unsolved. Frédéric Bourdin later said in interviews that he believes Nicholas's family members know exactly what happened to the real boy, and that's why they were so willing to accept an obvious fake. The case inspired the documentary The Imposter and raised chilling questions. Was this family just desperate to have their son back, or were they trying to cover up a much darker secret? To this day, Nicholas Barclay's real fate remains a mystery. And somewhere out there, the truth about what really happened to him might be buried with the people who claim to love him most. These 7 cases prove that sometimes the truth is stranger and more terrifying than any fiction. People can vanish for decades and be found in places we'd never think to look, sometimes right under our noses. Which case shocked you the most? Let me know in the comments below. If you found this video disturbing, wait until you see our next one about people who faked their own deaths and the shocking reasons why. You won't believe number 3. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe to the channel for more unbelievable true stories. Hit that notification bell so you never miss an upload. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.